Her hairstyles are bananas. Now I'll be honest, he strikes me more as a whiskey guy. Do you ever wonder what wines your favorite TV and movie characters would drink? Welcome to Screen Somm, where we answer that question. Today's show, Bridgerton. Okay, so for those of you who don't know Bridgerton, this is a show that's on Netflix. It's based off a set of romance novels written by Julia Quinn. It's produced by Shonda Rhimes, who you might know from Grey's Anatomy, one of the longest running TV dramas, I think probably ever. And what it is, it's kind of high society London crowd. It's set in the Regency period in London, which is the early 1800s. It's a drama / romance. It's kind of a guilty pleasure show, if I'm honest. My wife put it on, and I didn't think I was gonna like it, but I am a sucker for period pieces. And then they just did it really, really well. The acting and the characters are great. The costumes are out of this world. The sets are amazing. I really like the music. They do modern songs, and they do it to like old school violin scores. It's a little bit risque, I'll be honest. It's an adult show for sure, but it's a really, really fun show if you haven't checked it out. And so that's the show that we're gonna talk about today. Do me a favor, before we get started, just take one quick second, if you haven't already, and hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications. That way, every time we release new content or videos, you get notified right away. So I don't know how historically accurate the show is. I'm sure they take some artistic liberties like most shows do. But for our sake, we're gonna try and be really historically accurate with the alcohol and the wine. A lot of people might say, oh, this is a fiery character, so they get a spicy wine that associates with them. We're not gonna do that. We're gonna try and actually figure out exactly what these characters might have been drinking in that time period. So the information of what they would have been drinking in 1813 when Bridgerton takes place was actually a little bit tough to find in my research, and I think it helps if we go through some history of wine drinking in England in general. And by the way, wine definitely wouldn't have been the only thing drunk. Beer was very popular, especially among the lower classes, but so was gin, whiskey, and brandy. Alcohol was also still often drunk for medicinal purposes during this time period, so tonics and the like were a big thing. But they definitely did drink wine. Now, the English have never really had much wine-growing land of their own, and there's a few reasons for this. The first is that a lot of the country is just simply too rainy for vines to make good wine. The second is that up until recently, England was a bit too far north and thus a little too cold for wine growing. Though now you actually are seeing some winemaking in the southern part of the country as temperatures start to get warmer. They make some good sparkling wines. But the third reason, I think the most important, is because of the British Empire. They historically had no problem getting wine from other places because they owned land all across the world, and they also had a ton of money to simply buy wine from other countries. I actually talk a lot more about this in both our port and our Bordeaux episodes, which are coming out as part of V is for Vino Season 4 in a few months, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't so you don't miss those when they come out. Okay, so the abridged history of wine drinking in England is this. England's always loved French wine, especially the big three wine regions, which are Bordeaux, Champagne, and Burgundy. But throughout the 1400s and beyond, France and England were constantly at war. Sometimes England owned French winemaking territory, sometimes they didn't. Sometimes they had favorable trading relations, and sometimes they didn't. At the time where Bridgerton takes place in 1813, Britain and France would have actually been at war, the Napoleonic Wars specifically. So there's a good chance that French wine would have been hard to come by unless you're really wealthy, and so they would have been importing a lot of wine from Portugal and Spain, which were their other main trading partners, specifically fortified wines that could survive the slightly longer boat journey. So that means sherry, port, and Madeira. Okay, before we go any further and we talk about our characters, do me a favor, just give me a quick like. It helps boost us in the algorithm so we can keep making more videos for you. So our first character is Her Majesty the Queen, Queen Charlotte, who is the Queen Consort of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. It's a big title. She's one of my favorite characters on the show. Her hairstyles are bananas. I can't even imagine how much time is spent before filming with her, and hair and makeup and planning all that. She's also a great actress. She's like mean, but comically mean. Now, as far as what would she be drinking? Well, I would venture the guess that the Queen likes champagne. See, much like today, champagne was a bit of a status symbol even then. And even though it would have been hard to get a hold of with the French wars I mentioned earlier, I have to imagine the Queen was still able to find some. Odds are the palace had a very well-stocked cellar that predated the wars anyway. All right, our second character is Anthony Bridgerton, who the whole series revolved around in season 2. He's the Viscount.
This is the season the Viscount intends to find a wife.
You honestly just did that?
Yes, the Viscount. And the head of the Bridgerton family. He's super old school, traditional. I guarantee you he drinks what his father drank, and what his father before him drank. And that would be Bordeaux, which has always historically been the favorite wine of the English, especially wealthy English. For those who don't know, Bordeaux is a place in France where a lot of very famous producers make Cabernet Sauvignon or Merlot-based blends. These wines are big, rich, ripe dark fruits, gravelly, lots of oak use, and lots of aging potential. And again, while French wine would have probably been tough to find for commoners, the Bridgertons are a wealthy family and would likely have had a huge cellar with several thousand bottles and even servants to manage and inventory it. All right, character number 3 is Kate Sharma. Kate and Anthony are the central characters of season 2. She comes from India with her sister to help her find a match. And no spoilers, but let's just say it doesn't go down as planned. She's got a similar demeanor to Anthony and is always smart and really well composed. Now before dinner and at cocktail parties, a big wine that was commonly served was sherry. Sherry is a wine from Spain, and it became really popular in England when wines from France became hard to come by. In fact, by the mid-1800s, about 40% of all wine imported into England was sherry. It's both fortified and partially oxidized, which means it's nutty and often sweet, but it's still lighter in alcohol than a gin or a whiskey, so it was really common and popular with the ladies of that era. I'm guessing Kate likes lower alcohol drinks too, so she can always stay in control and her sharp and witty self.
Oh, you brought your dog?
Yes, Newton is an excellent judge of character. Oh, see?
All right, number 4 is Simon Basset, the Duke of Hastings. He was the heartthrob of season 1 and was kind of a bad boy character, a ladies' man. He bare-knuckle boxed. The women want him, the guys want to be him type of guy.
Your name, sir?
Am I honestly to believe you do not already know my name?
Now I'll be honest, he strikes me more as a whiskey guy, not a wine guy, but we're talking wine, so I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say there were times he also indulged in a bit of port wine. Now port is a fortified wine from Portugal. Fortified means they add a neutral spirit to boost its alcohol content, which helps preserve it and also makes the wine fairly sweet. Now tawny ports have a lot of caramel and nut characters, and ruby ports have great chocolate and smoke and berry flavors, both of which are similar to whiskeys, so I think the Duke would have been into them. Like sherry, port became very popular in England when French wine couldn't be imported, and it was especially popular after meals. So the men would go downstairs and smoke cigars, the women weren't allowed, and port was often served. And finally, a bonus surprise character. But here's the deal. If you want to see the character and the wine of this character, you gotta become a Vino VIP member. For a lot of our videos, we have some bonus content that's only available to our VIPs and our members section, so click the link in the comments or above my head to sign up. Your first month's absolutely free, so you have nothing to lose, and each month after that's only $5. And you'll not only get access to our members section, but you get early access to all of our YouTube videos, including our new season of V is for Vino. Plus, we do virtual Zoom wine tastings, raffle free wine glasses each month, and most importantly, it really helps support us so we can keep making videos for you. So please consider joining if you're enjoying the content. And that's it for this episode of Screen Somm. I hope you enjoyed. I really like Bridgerton. If you haven't checked out the show, I highly recommend it. It's really well done, and it was fun to kind of learn what the characters in this time period would have had. If you have a TV series or a movie where you want to know what the characters would drink, put it in the comments and maybe that'll be what I make the next video about. And it can be anything. It doesn't have to be a time period piece. It can be literally anything, and I'll do my best to figure it out. Thanks for watching. Until next wine.